Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos is a very special Shabbos. Shabbat Hagodel Parshat Metzorah, but what's really special about it is the name of this week's Shabbos, and that is Shabbat Hagodel, Shabbat Hagodel, the Great Shabbos. And the reason why it's called the Great Shabbos is because the Shabbos before Pesach. That's right. Make sure you have everything organized. If you have Shmura Matzah, we have Shmura Matzah for you. If you like to sell your chametz, please let me know. And get ready, because we're 1 week away from Passover. This is actually the furthest possible Shabbat Hagodel. Usually Shabbat Hagodel is right before Passover, or 3 days before. This seems like it's a full week, but it's still the Great Shabbos. And it's called the Great Shabbos because originally the first Passover on the Shabbat before, which was on the 10th of Nisan, 5 days before the Exodus of the Jewish people. It's when the Jewish people took the lamb, the Paschal lamb, and they wrapped it around their bedposts. And the Egyptians saw them bringing in a lamb into their home. And for the Egyptians, the lamb was a deity. And so when they saw this, they already saw that they were following the lamb, and the Jewish people were slaughtering the lamb. And so this was already beginning of the miracle, not just for the Egyptians, but for the Jewish people themselves. It was a very big psychological necessity, because remember, the Jewish people were in Egypt for 200 years prior to, and no one ever left. No one ever escaped Egypt. We're talking about multi-generational prisoners. And so psychologically, they had to break out of that concept. And how they do that? By slaughtering the deity of the Egyptians, by making the Paschal lamb. And that is why Pesach is called Pesach, not just from the offering, not just from the Passover, but because of the Pesach offering, what we have on our Seder plate, the Paschal lamb, because that is ultimately what started and caused the great miracle. And so, instead of celebrating the 10th of Nisan, which was the day that this happened, we always celebrate Shabbat Hagodel, the Great Shabbos. And why is that? And the answer is that the Shabbos before teaches us about the Jewish people that were keeping Shabbos. And so, Shabbos is such a miracle. It was such a deep miracle because any other time Jewish people could have escaped, or they could have convinced the power of one thing and went the other way. But Shabbos, everyone was sitting at home. Everybody was sitting in their home on Shabbat. And so they were doing this at a time where they weren't trying to escape like in warfare, which you don't have to keep Shabbat, but they were actually keeping Shabbat in their own home and preparing for the Paschal lamb. And so they were keeping Shabbat with their families. Every family actually had to be alone, each family by themselves, not joined together in combat, not joined together in order to have defense. But everyone calmly in their home, getting ready for Shabbat and getting ready for the Paschal lamb. And so it reminds us why we keep the Great Shabbat, because the Jewish people, ultimately, this was really dependent on a miracle here. It wasn't about a strategy. It was simply about keeping Shabbat, and that would bring the miracle of the exodus of the Jewish people. And so we call it the Great Shabbat, that we don't celebrate the 10th of Nisan to commemorate that day. This time we're going to be doing it on the 9th of Nisan, and that is because we celebrate Shabbat as the greatest miracle of the Jewish people. And when we do that, we commemorate it, and we celebrate together in shul, and celebrate together in our homes. We realize that Shabbat, the holiness of Shabbat, is what brings us the miracles into our home. By taking off this one day, by reflecting, by spending time with our family, by spending time with our spouses, by reflecting on God and everything Hashem gave us, instead of just the continuous rat race, we get that Shabbat. That gives us freedom. That gives us actual freedom. So it comes as Passover, when we're about to celebrate spiritual freedom. We're not just talking about an historic event that happened, and therefore we're still sitting here 2,500 years later, 3,200 years later, 3,400 years later almost, and just not eating chametz and preparing and cleaning our homes and getting ready to do all this stuff just to commemorate something that happened back then. The answer is no. Passover is a time that we get ready ourselves to have spiritual freedom. The first step to spiritual freedom is breaking away from the world, breaking away from everything. And that we do by keeping Shabbat. We get together on Shabbat, we disconnect from the news, disconnect from social media, disconnect from the world, and celebrate ourselves, celebrate God, celebrate our families. And that's how we celebrate true freedom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.